everyone, and welcome to the Wrap Up Pajama Party podcast. And this time with a real live guest. You can introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lotta, for having me here on the show. My name is Meryl, or Merel in Dutch. I'm a friend of Kiki's since I feel like it's 100 years or something. We we have been doing theater musical shows for years and years and years, and she loves to read, and I like to read, but I mostly read in Dutch. But since she started her booktube, she's got me enthusiastic for what she's doing. So that's why I'm here. And I read a book. Whoa!
You read too?
I even read two. So anything else I need to tell?
That's great.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, as she told you, I forced her to read 2 books, and one of them is a very spicy book, so that was really fun to make her read that, and the other one was one of my favorites of last year. And I think because I read a little bit more, we're just going to alternate between who's going to tell about the books. And I think maybe I'll just start because I have more books to talk about. And we're back. We had to take a little break because my camera was dying again. And yeah, that's also part of a podcast nowadays. Oh,
This too.
it's really pretty.
Let me just take it off.
We also only have one microphone, so this is a very low budget production, but we're just gonna roll with it. I was talking about the first book I read, and that is With a Vengeance by Freydis Moon. This is a dark paranormal erotic romance, which was a first for me, and I immediately forgot how many stars I gave it, so let me look that up real quick. Yeah, you can look. It was also the first book I read that the author was non-binary, and the main character identified themselves as they, them. So that was really cool to read about. And where is my rating? I gave it 3 stars. It was an okay book. I liked it. But yeah, I don't know. The topics weren't really. I don't know what it is about this book, but it wasn't just the best book I ever read. It was really cool to read about, and that's why I gave it 3 stars. And if you're into dark paranormal erotic romances, I highly suggest you check it out. But I just don't think that this type of erotica is my jam. So also, I wasn't really in the mood for a lot of smutty books this month. I don't know why. Normally, I really am, but I was more into a fantasy mood with less smut, so that was kind of complicated because most of the books I was about to read were really smutty, so maybe that also clouded my judgment in this book, but yeah, I don't know. And then we're going to the second book of mine, and which one do I want to talk about? I think I'm going to talk about Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey. And this book is also a book I think I'm going to recommend to you, Meryl.
Okay.
I gave it 4 stars, and I also have a reading vlog about this one. So I will link it up. You can check that one out if you want to know every little thought I had while reading it. But this book is about a girl who used to have a huge crush on a boy who lived in the same town. He then moves and becomes a professor, but now moves back, and she's like, let's get it on. But he's a grumpy professor, and yeah, she has another boy who's in love with her. So it is a really cute romance. It is sweet. It is fun. It was really easy to read, and just hold it. I don't know what it is with this book, but it feels amazing. I don't know. I think it's because it's so floppy that it's just,
It's light.
yeah, it just felt amazing, and I just appreciate that about books. So that was the second book. What? It's okay. So now you can talk about one of your books you want to talk about. You can decide.
All right, all right. Let me start. So, help me out with what I have to say about the books.
Yeah.
So, let me just start with maybe this one.
Yeah. You can start.
Okay. So, like I already said, I am not used to reading in English. I read, but mostly in Dutch. So it took me forever to read the other book, which I'm gonna talk about later, which is 200 pages. So but this one I read quite quickly, of course, because it's mostly how do you call it? It's a graphic novel, and it's Fangs. Yeah, I really liked it. It was so funny. There's so many jokes in the story, and it was easy to read, of course. So while I was reading the other book, I was kind of stressed out because we already had set a date to talk about it, and I was like, how am I going to read all of this? So then I read this one in the middle of that, and I really enjoyed it. Really funny. Looks great. I love the bit where I don't know their names anymore, but the wolf and the vampire are reading vampire books together, and she's very intrigued with all the books, but then they start reading Twilight and she just dies of laughter, which I thought was really funny. So yeah, it was a really good read. Do I need to give stars?
You can give it.
I give it all the stars. How many? 5 stars.
5 stars is the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fangs is also one of my favorite books. It is so funny, and it is a great book, especially for people who don't read a lot, because it reads really easy, like you said. And also, when you're in a reading slump, which we all from time to time experience, those books are just great. And the only sad thing is, I think in Australia you can't get this book, which is really weird, but someone told me. So I hope maybe sometime in the future they will be able to get it, because I think everyone should read this book, and it's just hilarious. It's really fun, and you can read it in like 50 minutes, which is, it's just great. So I'm really happy you like that book.
Yes,
I really am. And yeah, no, I have still a lot of books to talk about, so I'm just gonna go ahead. The next book I read was A Court of Ravens and Ruin by Eliza Raine, and this book I read for the Romantasy-a-thon. That was a week-long read-along where this was the group book, so everyone, well, almost everyone read that book. Which was really a fun experience to read with so many people, the same book. And I gave it 4 stars. It was really good. It was, I think, maybe I'm also going to recommend this book to you. I'm not sure yet, but the fun thing about this book is you have all Sarah J. Maas's her book, which I have a lot of them, and they are really good fantasy romance books, but they're really long. And for some people, that's just not it. Especially if you're just dipping your toes into the genre, it can be very intimidating. It can take you forever to finish the book, and it's just very descriptive, which, I don't know, for some people, it's just not really their vibe. And I think this book is a great book to start when you want to start reading fantasy romance, because it's really short. It gets to the point. And it just crosses off all the things. There's a lot of things happening at the same time, which keeps you intrigued. And I had so much fun reading this book. The book is about a girl who gets kidnapped by a shadow prince and gets taken to their court. And there's war and stuff. And I think this book almost hits every trope of every fantasy romance book, but it's just great. And there are also 2 other books in the series out, so I definitely want to check that out. But if you're feeling if you want to read fantasy romance for everyone, I think this is a great book to start and to see if fantasy romance is something you like. So I gave it 4 stars. I really liked it. And then I think I'm gonna talk about I'm gonna talk about the best book I'll probably have read in 2023.
That's quite a statement.
Yeah, it really is, and that is The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This book I also read in the Romanticy-a-thon, but this book is amazing. I can't wait to reread it already, and it's just the best. It is about a human girl, who gets adopted by a vampire lord, king, I don't know how you call it, and he just raises her as his own. And to become a vampire, if you get bitten, there's, I think, 2 out of 3 chance that you'll die. So he doesn't want to do that to her. Mm-hmm. But there is a tournament that happens one every 200 or 100 years. Mm-hmm. At least it is once in a very, very long time. And in that tournament, you're just stuck with a bunch of vampires from all the different courts that they have. And the one that survives can ask the goddess of the vampire thing, can make a demand, a question. He can request for something. So she's planning on doing that to become a vampire and become linked to her father, so they share each other's powers or something. The only thing I don't get is that sounds more deadly than being bitten, but I think her father just wants to be linked to her or something like that. I don't know. But it was just an amazing book. And of course, when the trials begin, she meets a handsome vampire. So there is romance in this book. It's definitely there, but I think the fantasy is also really well build up, the world building and stuff like that. Because a lot of times with fantasy romance books, you have that the romance is really overshadowing the the fantasy side, and I didn't think that in this book. I think it was a really good balance between fantasy and romance, but this book is more like the Sarah J. Maas's book, so it is. Yeah, I think everyone can start reading this book, of course, but the other book is more easy to get into, I think. Yeah. So yeah, that is probably going to end up in my top 10 of 2023, which is, I don't know, just to have read the book in February, that's I'm also sure about, is going to end up there. It's great. It's really, really happy about that. So that's great. And now I will hand the mic over to you so you can talk about your sexy little book.
So yeah, she said, "Oh, you can read this book. This is easy to read." To start reading in English, and that was Desperate Measures by Katee Robert. So it took me a long time to read this. As you can see, it's not a long or a big book or something, but for starters, it was in English, so I have to read everything out loud in my head, and it felt inappropriate to read in a lot of places. So I was in a train, going somewhere, and I was like, I hope no one is reading over my shoulder. This is okay. This is intense. So, but it was really fun to read. I haven't really read any smutty books before. I've read half the what's the famous book again? The 50 Shades once. I read half of that, and I was like, meh. But this was really the story of Jasmine and Jafar made it really fun, because you know them, and you know them from the film, and then the twist is really interesting. But I had trouble in the beginning, because I started in my head in the olden days Arabian country, and then he started unzipping something, and I was like, did they have zippers back then? They didn't have zippers back then. So I was really confused in the beginning, and then of course it escalates extremely quickly. That's why your reel of this week, or of course this is gonna be a bit later. So your reel of a while ago was very spot on of this book, because it was like, oh, he's okay, they're doing that. All right, it's happening. But I was really confused because of the zipper, and then there was something like, do you use protection? I was like, they didn't have protection. They had marriage, and then they just had kids, and then they got in a car, and I was like, oh, all right, it's not. Yeah, it's modern. Okay, there's a car. All right. And then I got into it in the story, and there are other characters from the other books you said that are crossing paths a little bit. So yeah, it was really fun to read, but it took me a long time because there was a lot of moments where I was like, I can't read it in here. I can't read it here. But yeah, it was really fun to read. I did skip through the last few smutty scenes because I was like, oh yeah, they're gonna. I just want to know how it ends with Ali, and I want to know what happens. And then they're just having 5 pages of sex, and I was like, nah, meh, they're still naked. Yeah, okay, skip that. Okay, now they're going somewhere. They're gonna do something. So let's say, is it my thing to read bigger books of this? I don't think so. I don't know if there's more of those scenes, or if there's more story. Maybe that depends on the writer. But with this one, I mean, it was the balance was good. But I had to, at the end, I was like, oh yeah, they're gonna do it again. And I just want to know how the story ends, So so it was really. Let me say, I don't know. I think I'm gonna give it 3 stars. But maybe it's because I feel like I'm skipping the bits that are the fun bits, maybe. Yeah. And it just took me forever to read. So it's gonna be fun. I mean, if we're gonna have to discuss the next book, I'm gonna be back in 1 year, because yeah, it takes a while. So yeah.
Well, I actually finished that entire series last month in February, which means I've read, what was it? I think I read Learn My Lesson, which is the second book. I read that the month before that. But this month I read A Worthy Opponent, which is about Tink and Peter Pan. Yeah. And then you have The Beast, which is Gaston the Beast and Belle. Then you have The Sea Witch, which is Zuriel and Ursula. Then you have Queen Takes Rose, which is Aurora and Maleficent. Yeah, but they call it different. I don't know. And then I also read The Wicked Villain Short, which first at hand I didn't know what that was going to be about, but it's just simply that between each books there are some short stories. So that was the most fun thing about that was I really I think Desperate Measures, the first book, is my favorite of the entire series. And in the short stories you get to see a little bit more of their story, because there's, I think, 2 short stories about them, but then you also have of the other books also another short story, which is really fun. I gave all the books 3 stars, and that's I had fun with it, but also it was just I don't know, it was a little bit too much smut, and also because I think I read so many of them back to back, it just got a little bit repetitive. But one thing, I did learn a lot of new things that I didn't know, and also things that I was like, oh, I didn't know that I liked reading about this, but apparently I do. So that's also really fun to know. But yeah, it was just I think the first one is really mild compared to, yeah, that's that one, compared to the other books, especially which one, A Worthy Opponent has, yeah, yeah, there's just a lot of things happening. A lot of persons happening. So yeah, I think you should just stick to that one, and I don't think. But now we know at least that that much amount of smut is not really your thing, which is totally fine. We can grab some new recommendations for you. But I finished the series. It was fun. Do I recommend reading them from back to back? Personally, not for me. But also, as I said before, I just wasn't in the biggest smut phases of the year. So that also kind of uh, made me rate them 3 stars. I think maybe if I was very in a smutty mood, maybe I would give them 4 stars because the writing of Katee Robert is really good. I do really enjoy that. I also read Neon Gods, and I have her second book, and also another. I don't know anymore. But at least her writing, there's nothing wrong with it. I think she's really good at that. She also has a book, and I kind of want to buddy read that book with you, but I don't know. It's also gonna be very smutty, but it's supposed to be really funny. And there's also a book by her, and that is called The Dragon's Bride, and that is a girl who gets auctioned off to a dragon kind of guy with two wieners. So yeah, a lot of people say it's a really good book. I just think it's going to be really funny, and I don't know if we can get some cheap copies, maybe I'll buy it for you and we can read it together. I think that would be very fun, especially if we did kind of like a live show. We could do that. I don't know if you're up for it, but and then you just read, so we can just talk about what we just read, and everyone can see. I think that's really fun. Yeah, also, yeah, I think the second book came out, and I didn't hear many great stories about that one, but the first one just sounds like a lot of fun, and it's always fun to read smut with weird things. Yeah. It's just really funny. Also, I can just only imagine the writer just sitting behind their desk and just typing away with strange wieners.
It would be really funny to write.
Yeah.
But it is also funny to read. It's really funny. But especially when you're just, maybe when we're reading together, then you can laugh about it. Because in the train I was like, okay, I'm gonna pretend that I'm reading something really, really like literature book or something.
Jane Austen.
Yeah, but yeah, when you can just laugh about it, it'll be fun. Yeah. And I also want to say what I really thought was smart of Katee is that she incorporates the other characters already in this book. So even if maybe I'm not reading the other books, it made me curious for what were they doing there? What's going to happen in their book? But let's read the dragon one. That sounds really funny.
Yeah, so guys, if you want to watch us read The Dragon's Bride, please let us know in the comments, and we'll make that happen. I have one book left, actually, and that is Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. This was a recommendation of Fien, which you know. Oh, yeah. And this is... it's been so long since I read the book. But it was really good. I gave it... Let's see... I gave it 4 stars. It was really sweet story about friendship, and just like Fien said in her clip in the TBR, it was just really good read. I don't know. It was not like fun or anything, but it was nice to read about friendship that way, and not there being the romantical aspect of it. Just pure friendship and helping each other through tough times, and yeah, it was really fun. It was really fun to read. So Fien, if you're listening, thank you so much for recommending it to me. And I think there aren't like sequels, but there are like companion novels, I think, or at least they're in the same series, but they follow different people. I don't know, but maybe I'll check that out. It was really fun, and Alice Oseman is just a great writer, so that's also really fun. So I think we've talked about all the books we've read in February, and it was a lot of fun. Meryl, thank you so much for being here. It's a lot of fun making these podcasts on my own, but to be here with someone is really fun. And I'll make sure to next time if you're here, we'll get a second mic, so it's going to be a little bit easier, and I'll make sure to charge the camera properly, so we don't have to stop in the middle of it 10,000 times. So, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
And thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun. You really got me enthusiastic for reading more, and I'm gonna try to speed up the reading. Try. No promises. Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Doei.
Wat een klote show.